Hello and welcome to the Film Pulse Podcast. This is episode number 436. My name's Adam Patterson. With me today we've got Kevin Rakestraw. Hey, Kevin.
Hey.
How's it going?
Hey, it's going on, man.
Good.
How you doing?
Doing good. Busy with life, This week on the show, we'll be taking a look at the sci-fi comedy Bigbug, which is available now on Netflix. We'll also be going over some we're watching on the watch list and this week's new releases in theaters, VOD, and Blu-ray. Thank you so much for joining us this week. Please remember to review us on iTunes if you get a moment. That'd be extremely helpful. I don't really have anything for housekeeping. We have the theme for this month's Saved by the 90s. We're going to be recording it this week, so stay tuned for more information on that. Probably next week I'll be able to tell you the movies and the theme and all of that stuff. But stay tuned for that. I think we can go ahead and dive into our review. Now, I'm calling it Bigbug because it's all one word is the title. So it's not like Big Bug. Is that how you're reading it? Bigbug?
Yeah, I mean, how else could we read it? Should we run through a couple different?
Well, you can say Big Bug,
Bug.
like two words, like that. Oh, that's a big bug. Like a computer, like a bug in a computer system. Oh,
Yeah, I mean, if you're a fan of insects, you're going to be disappointed. Highly disappointed. This has nothing to do with insects.
No. It's a computer bug. So this is directed by Jean-Pierre Jeunet, a name that we haven't really talked about in a while on this show, or in general. I have a synopsis here. Humans have ceded most tasks to AI in 2045, even in nostalgic Alice's home. So when robots stage a coup, her androids protectively lock her doors. So what was the last movie that Jeunet did? Was it did T.S. Spivet? That's probably the one. The Young and Prodigious T.S. Spivet.
Yes, and this is something that I immediately looked up after learning about Bigbug, which is, I mean, kind of odd that he just have a movie from this guy dropping on Netflix. No fanfare whatsoever. Just like, oh, by the way.
I know, it's really weird.
So I was like, oh man, it has been a while. It feels like it's been ages. So I looked it up because I'm thinking Micmacs was the last thing. Because honestly, I completely had forgotten about T.S. Spivet.
I didn't even see it.
I did. It was bad.
Yeah, I remember you talked
really
about it
bad.
on the show, I think.
And I remember T.S. Spivet being kind of it felt more of a like Gilliam / Burton type thing. And like it just didn't feel like him. And Bigbug feels more like him, but too much.
It's really interesting. Like, so if you're not familiar with this director, he's a very visual director. This is the guy who did Amelie, Delicatessen, City of Lost Children. Like, these are all like insanely visually stylish, very quirky movies. And when you compare Bigbug to those three that I mentioned, or even Micmacs, it's very different. It's like it's still visual.
It's kind of the same. It's just like the color palette is just
right. That's exactly what I was just gonna say. The big thing is the changing color palette, whereas with those other movies, you have lots of browns and golds, and like everything is kind of washed out and sort of metallic. With Bigbug, everything is like very bright, vibrant, lots of colors, lots of contrast, and it is definitely, I think, one of the most notable things about this movie that I think most people will say is like, well, the visuals are just something else in this. It's the other elements, I think, are what help make it feel like a Jeunet movie as well, like the characters, like the oddball characters, the weird mannerisms that people have, and the sort of offbeat comedy that's employed here. Some of it like leaning on the more darker side of things. and he also tends to seem to like to incorporate little communities, like having weird oddball neighbors and stuff like that with a lot of his movies, and that's all on display here too. I think to varying degrees of success.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's just too much. It's too plastic. Feel like it's just overly artificial, just excessively so. It's extremely French.
Yeah.
And I just like it's super French. And I don't know if I can necessarily explain what that means, but I also feel like by simply saying it's excessively French, you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If not, I'm sorry. I don't know how else to explain it.
Especially like French comedies. Like, I don't know if I can't recall any like newer French comedies that I've seen, but it feels very much like a lot of the kind of older French comedies too, where everything's just so frantic and just kinetic, and everything is moving so fast. And that's one of the issues I had with this, is that a lot of the stuff happens and you're just like, wait a minute, let's take a step back, especially like what happens at the end. I feel like he had no idea how to end this movie, and it just the way that it ends is kind of baffling to me. Like, none of it felt really justified. Like, I didn't understand the way that it ended, and I felt like everything was just happening way too fast. Like, there wasn't any time to establish these characters. And it took me a while to even figure out the relationships between some of these people. Like, I didn't know, like, that the young boy or the teenage kid was like the guy's son for a little bit, and like there was no time for us to like take a breath to just sort of.
Well, I think that's the peculiar aspect of this movie, because to me it has a very peculiar pace to it. It's like you said, it's very frantic. It never stops to take a breath. But at the same time, it feels like it drags on forever. And it's just so bizarre. I just like how...
Yeah, I mean, that definitely happens like in the second act and in the middle bit when they're just kind of hanging out and not really doing anything. Like, that's when it gets really sort of where it slows down. And yeah, it's just, I think that maybe one of the problems is because you're introducing the viewer into this future world where this isn't like a near future type of thing, even though it takes place in 2045. Like, this is way off. I mean, we are so far beyond where we're at right now in the present. Like, a lot of your time as a viewer is going to be spent just drinking in this world and like looking at the technology and understanding like all of the different gadgets and robots and how things work in this world, because it's so vastly different than where we're at right now. Now, do I think that we could get to this point? Like, yeah, probably, but it's still like so far different than where we're at that I think a lot of your time, like you're trying to follow these characters and what's going on in their relationships and the conflict between them, but at the same time you're just trying to understand this world, and everything just gets so muddled. And like you said, it does lag in the middle, and it all feels really off. And I think that it is due to the weird pacing.
And it's just bizarre, because like in my eyes, the world building I think is pretty fantastic. It's definitely the highlight of this movie. The world, the technology, all the things that's happening in that aspect, the production design, art direction, all of that. Definitely the highlight, where you're like, okay, this is really thought out. I like this. But then to just populate it with people, which I guess is, some kind of commentary. And I mean, this movie's all commentary, which is, I think, its biggest knock against it. Just to populate it with a ton of people that are very horny. And I think that's the Frenchness, just frantic horniness.
Yeah.
You're just like, okay, you're this sustained horniness, and the frantic nature of it it's exhausting. It's just exhausting. It's exhausting.
Yeah, there's a lot of relationship stuff going on here between like the Alice and her suitor and the ex-husband and his new girlfriend and then the neighbor and Greg.
Yeah.
It's just and then the two kids also have like a budding romance.
And then even the androids are like, "Oh, this is how we can become human."
Yeah.
So of course the one, the mecha Monique starts giving it a test run. It's like, can we just take a break? Can we just take a break for you guys just do it.
Get it out of your system.
10-minute break.
Just get it.
You guys can do it. And we can move on to something else maybe.
I don't know. I think it was like the heat had played a role in that maybe.
Yeah. I don't know. It's too much. It's just too... it's too French, whatever that means. It's too French.
I will underscore or double down on what you said about the visuals. I loved pretty much everything as far as like the look of the house and like just like pretty much everything. How all the computers worked, the voice activated, the AI stuff, all the robots, like that all looked awesome. I think it was a mix of practical and CG, but more heavily leaned on the CG stuff. I think there were a lot of CG things that probably didn't need to be, but it was clearly going for a sort of like farcical like kind of style. So it wasn't like uber realistic looking CG. It was definitely like exaggerated looking, which I think
I think that's the thing. It's just everything about this is so heightened and artificial.
Yeah,
that,
everything.
If you're not tapped into that or on the safe wavelength from the outset, it's just going to rub you the wrong way the entire duration.
Yep. I will say that probably my favorite thing, as far as like the items, was that chair. Like the chair that like folded down.
Do you remember that? You can buy those. You can buy those, I think that's just a normal chair.
Well, that's what I was thinking too, like, because that looked like just a real chair, but it was so cool how it folded down like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I don't know. It's just too sweet. It's just too garish for me for, almost 120 minutes.
Yeah.
It's just a bit too, my eyes can't take that much input. It's just too many colors.
It's a lot. It's a very glossy, bright movie. It reminded me of, now I didn't see these movies, but it reminded me of the Robert Rodriguez Shark Boy and Lava Girl or Spy Kids. Like, kind of reminded me of that style. And again, I haven't seen any of those, but just like from the previews and stuff.
Yeah.
Or Speed Racer.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
I think Speed Racer is actually a good. That's a good comparison. Like where everything is just so bright and neon, and even the people, the androids, like all the robots.
Oh yeah,
with their big fake teeth, and
that's the thing is like there's positives here because like with the people that play the androids, I gotta give them credit. Like those are phenomenal performances because they did not feel real to me at all.
Like Greg, I thought the guy who played Greg did a really good job.
They all freaked me out. Monique, Greg, weird. Yonix, like they're just not real people, and it freaked me out. So kudos to you and your performances because it was just unnatural and I didn't like it. But at the same time, that's what you're going for. So bravo.
Yeah.
But at the same time, too, like with the messaging, because I mean, it's, it's just, it comes down to the way I see it is about the EU, and it's just a bunch of boomer bullshit. You know what I mean? Like, it's just kind of outdated.
Yeah.
Like the Jennifer character is kind of like like a Elon Musk reply
Yeah.
guy,
Yeah.
defender.
She's like the young hip one. And then you have Alice, who's the one who's kind of holding on to the nostalgia. She's holding on to the past. She has
Yeah.
a library of real books, like old books, and they have this like sort of little museum of old technology. So
Yeah, but of course you have the Yonex that has all these rules and regulations that are designed to protect people, but in
Mhm.
all actuality,
Yeah, it's creating this like authoritarian type
yeah.
dystopia.
And it's the humans and the androids at the outset feel like they're against each other. But it turns out that they just need to band together and go against the government.
Yep. Yeah, I was not.
Yeah.
I wasn't really into the kind of like overarching narrative either. I found it more interesting the sort of stripped down base level where it's just a bunch of people, bunch of horny people locked in a house
Yeah.
together with some kooky robots trying to help
It's
them
kind
out.
of taking time away from the horniness here and there. Just like little respites of like, how can we get out of here? How can we
Yeah.
get out of this house?
I did
But it
like.
seemed like it, but it honestly, it felt like it shouldn't have focused on it. It shouldn't have focused on trying to get out of the house. It seemed like the more immediate thing was their horniness, and they needed to just get rid of that. They needed to take care of that and then move forward.
Well,
You
they
know, I think they
also
would have succeeded more.
I mean, like they're trying to, like, the robots are trying to protect them. So it's like maybe you need to be like watching the news, keeping an eye. Maybe you're in there for good reason, you know? I did
Yeah.
kind of like the joke at the end with like COVID 50 or 30 or whatever it was. That was kind of.
They found out they were learning humor.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah,
know,
and they did
they
a
were learning.
did a silly COVID joke.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like, I gotcha. That's a good joke there, Jean-Pierre.
Yeah, overall, this just really wasn't for me. Unfortunately, I just wasn't too into it. Like I would say, like the first 10 minutes, I was kind of really enjoying the visuals, but also just trying to keep up with what the hell was happening between these characters and trying to figure out who they all were and what was going on. And then the rest, like the middle part, I was just like, okay, let's move it along here. I just don't care about watching these sweaty people lay around.
I think that was my thing too. Is like initially the world and everything. I was like, okay, I kind of like this, but at the same time, there was a part of me that was like, okay, I like that. I like all this, the art direction and everything, but it's not going to be like this the whole time, is it? Because that seems sickening. We're not going to do that, are we? And then you realize very quickly that it's going to take place in that location for the entire duration.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, oh boy, oh man, I haven't had a migraine in a long time, but
I'm due.
tonight might be the night.
Yeah, it's a little intense, I would say. I don't know. It again was just really not for me. It was a little bit of a disappointment. Despite the visuals, I think that there just wasn't really enough here. I didn't find it funny either, and maybe there was some of it was lost in translation.
Yeah, I think that's the other thing too, is that so much of this, again, not to harp on an entire nationality, but so much of it is French humor, where it's just like, okay, like
Yeah.
I guess this is funny. I don't know, not to me, but
True.
who knows?
Yeah. All right. What are you gonna give Bigbug out of 10?
Man, I give this like a 3.
Yeah, I'm sitting at like a 3.5. I do applaud them for a lot of the world build, not necessarily the world building, but just like sort of the production design. and the robots, like the Einstein robot, I thought looked really cool. So I think a lot of it that was cool, but the rest of it, and even the world building, I thought was just pretty generic future sci-fi. Like it was more like the specifics, like the specific things in the house, like the gadgets and stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I was really a huge fan of the robot that wants to help clean your room.
Yeah.
Love that guy. I love Toby.
Oh yeah.
And I was so happy about Toby, and then Toby gets locked outside, and I'm just like, well, this movie's only going to go downhill from here, unless they somehow bring Toby back inside.
Well, not only that, but they killed Toby, or at least they said that they killed Toby. They incinerated him, which I thought was kind of fucked up. Like, you don't need to do that.
Yeah, that was just a bummer, because as soon as he was introduced, I'm like, well, Toby's going to die some way. I mean, I was happy that you don't necessarily see it, so that's good.
The joke there was that she has clones of him, so it's like
so many Tobys.
So she didn't even care when she found out that the current version was incinerated.
Yeah,
get it?
Which I would clone this. I would clone the shit out of Toby too.
Oh yeah,
kidding me?
Unless there were like weird, like every time you clone them, it was like multiplicity or something, where like every time you clone them, they get a little bit more off.
That would be funny that every time I clone it got close, it looked closer and closer to Michael Keaton, but in dog form.
And eventually it just turned into like a little mini Michael Keaton.
But as a dog.
Oh, that'd be great. All right, yeah, that's Bigbug. That's on Netflix right now. Let's move on. Talk about some of what we're watching. Got a couple things on my list, but I think it might be your turn this week.
Okay. Well, I got it. I'll kick it off with Takeshi Miike.
Oh boy.
2019's First Love. This is available on Amazon Prime and the beloved Tubi TV. Everyone's favorite. You can watch it on either one. I know everyone's going to watch it on Tubi because that's the preferred choice. This is Takeshi Miike doing what I would consider just your default crime movie where you have a young boxer, right? It's always a boxer. And he gets mixed up in the Yakuza. And there's a woman being held and forced into prostitution, and he trying to help her out. And of course there's some corrupt cops, and there's this whole thing about, trying to get some drugs, and it seems like this has been, although I can't name the movies, I feel like this is kind of like a default formula for Yakuza movies. And but it's Miike, and it's fun, and it's good times, and god damn it did I enjoy myself. Like, it's a lot funnier than I was expecting it to be. It's fucked up in some ways, which was not surprising. And I mean, it's just, I don't know, like, the Miike to me is just like, he's like comfort food.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, he's like a bowl of mac and cheese. A nice stovetop mac and cheese.
Oh yeah.
Just hits the spot. Fucking love it. And I can sit there and you'd be like, is this a phenomenal film? Is this like pure cinema? No, it's not. But I fucking enjoyed the shit out of it. And that's all that matters when you're watching a Miike.
I don't remember too much about this one, but I did see it, and I do remember liking it quite a bit.
The Yakuza guy that's like stealing the drugs and kind of like trying to flip it and create this gang war. His night escalates where he just has to keep killing more and more people, and that was not his intention from the outset, but he's just like, well, I've already killed one, might as well kill two.
Well,
and then when he kills two, he's like, well, I just gotta keep it going, I guess. I'm just gonna be killing people tonight. That's my thing.
That's my night booked.
And he like runs over. He's like, the one guy he fucking disarms or whatever and knocks him out cold, and he steals the guy's like massive SUV, and he's just like, wow, I gotta kill this guy. So he, of course, like drags his body over and puts his head underneath the tire, and then gets in the SUV and drives over his face and crushes his skull. And as disgusting as that sound, it was also just fucking delightful.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, I think, Miyake is the only one that can do that. He's the only one that can make truly fucked up shit, but at the same time, I can just sit there and be like, this is delightful.
Yeah. Just such a bonkers kind of director.
Indeed. Just having fun with it.
Hardest working director in Japan, I would say.
Oh, definitely. This is what the First Love's got to be like movie 372.
It's a lot. That's for sure.
It's insane.
Well, speaking of directors that are like kind of comfort food, I saw Kimi. This is the Steven Soderbergh's new one. Yeah. And I look at Soderbergh sort of the same way as I do with Miyake, where like some of his movies I love, some of them I think are okay, but at the end of the day, you're always going to be in for something that's probably going to entertain you and be pretty good. And that's kind of how I felt about Kimi, which is sort of a cross between The Net and like a Hitchcock film, like Rear Window or something. It's quite good, actually. It stars Zoe Kravitz as a she works for a company that's sort of like, it's like an AI company that has this box. They're basically like an Amazon or an Apple, where they have an AI box that is like Siri or Alexa, and what she does is she listens to recordings from these boxes that it didn't interpret correctly, and then fixes it so that it can be better and that they can further develop the platform. And she while she's working, she's also agoraphobic. So she works from home. This takes place in Seattle, and she ends up hearing on one of the recordings what she believes to be a woman being murdered. And it sets forth this series of events where she's trying to figure out, who it was and uncover the truth behind this. Meanwhile, the company that she works for seems to be trying to cover it up. So she's trying to like circumvent them, prevent them from covering this whole thing up. Then she becomes a target. And she also she's sort of forming a relationship with her neighbor across the street. And they sort of like communicate, through the windows at each other and stuff. And then they eventually start talking and blah, blah, blah. And it's quite good. I enjoyed this quite a bit. I thought that the score was really good. It had this very kind of Hitchcockian score to it that I thought added a lot to the atmosphere. This is set during COVID-19, so the pandemic plays a pretty large role in this as well, because it kind of the pandemic sort of exacerbates her illness and like prevents her from functioning even more. And it's really good. It's on HBO Max, so if you have HBO Max, you can check it out right now. I don't know if this is going to be one of those like ones that's only on there for a couple weeks. It might be, but it's not amazing or anything like that, but I had a really good time with it, so I would check it out. It's called Kimi. Interestingly, her character's name is Angela in this, and I believe that is Sandra Bullock's character's name in The Net. And Buzz from Home Alone is in this, and his name is Kevin, like Kevin McAllister. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but it's something I noted.
How about that? Devin Berte. I watched Aaron Loves Angela. This is from 1975. Gordon Parks Jr. I've almost seen all of Gordon Parks Jr.'s films now. The only one I haven't seen is Through the Hard Way. So I think you could definitely say Aaron Loves Angela is the the least well known of his films, and it kind of makes sense in that regard. This is it's kind of like a teen, like a romance type movie where Aaron and Angela, they're two young kids living in Harlem. Aaron is black, Angela is Puerto Rican, so like they really shouldn't be together, and they're trying to work through that, and I don't know, like it's just there's just trying to be too many different things in this movie because there's that angle, there's Aaron's like a basketball player and his dad was like an all-American football player who even played in the NFL a little bit, and he's trying to get him to, just work hard at basketball so he can earn money. And all he does is watch like his little slideshows of his time in the NFL. And he owns like a rib place now. And then there's the drug angle where there's this like cocaine dealer. And it's just, I don't know, to me there's just way too many things going on. But I think the main thing that is the detriment to this movie is the kid that plays Aaron, Kevin Hooks, is just like no charisma, no nothing. Which in a sense, it's kind of perfect for the narrative that they're going for here, where it's this kid that's just like, this coming of age story where everything was just like a bit too much for him. Like everything is just a little bit, he's in too deep, he's in over his head between the romance, the drug angle, him and his father, the relationship there, and his basketball career, all these things where he's just kind of like, he always has this kind of like dumbfounded look on his face, like there's just too much going on and he can't process it. But kind of what it comes down to is, on the flip side of that is, he doesn't really have a presence. He doesn't have a charisma to him, and the whole like romance angle of this thing, it just is kind of a wet blanket where you're just like, okay, I hope these kids, but at the same time, they're not really that interesting. But the one interesting thing about this, which is a thing that I miss about movies from this time frame, the entire score of this movie is Jose Feliciano doing like songs just for this movie, which is something that you used to get, where you used to get like huge, big name music people doing a score to like, original songs through and through. And it was incredible. But at the same time, you got to deal with, there's like of course there's written in where it's like Jose Feliciano doing a performance at a bar and you have to sit through the entire performance. Because I'm sure that was like written into the contract.
Yeah. All right. That was Aaron Loves Angela. Speaking of charisma, I saw a movie that has a main character who has a lot of charisma, maybe too much, and used for a very kind of nefarious reasons, and that's the Tinder Swindler on Netflix. This is a documentary, crime doc. It is. This is directed by Felicity Morris, and it is about this Israeli diamond mogul who is just he's just a con man. He's a straight up con man who meets women on Tinder and develops relationships with them, and then basically begs them for money, and then gets them to give him thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars in some cases. And they interview some of the women who he scammed, and the process that they went through. Like basically like 3 of these women teamed up and took him down, and it just kind of goes through the whole process. It's a quite well made documentary. It is very infuriating, especially at the end, because this guy's just such a shitbag, and it it's always infuriating when you see these con men like scamming people out of so much money. And surrounding this, I saw a lot of victim blaming, like, well, they're so stupid. Why would they give him that much money and stuff like that? And like, that pisses me off when I see that type of stuff. It's the same reason, like when you hear about people who are in cults and stuff, and like, if you're that dumb, maybe you deserve it. Like, you don't have any idea like what's going on in these people's minds. Like, these women, they were in love with this guy. Like the one woman was with him, or she thought that they were like engaged, and like they were together for over a year. And if the person who you want to spend the rest of your life with comes to you and says, hey, my life is in danger, all my assets have been frozen, and up until that point there have been no indications that this person is not a wealthy businessman, like, I can see where they would do that. Like if my wife came to me and said that there's like a bunch of hitmen coming after her or something, and then she needed money, I'd give her the money.
That's interesting. I don't know if my wife would.
She wouldn't give you the money?
No, I don't think so. She'd be like, okay, this is too, I'm gonna get out of here.
Well, your wife's a very frugal person, so yeah, maybe. But it's
good for you. I'm glad you would.
I would, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just money, like. Anyway, I don't want to see any kind of victim blaming around this, but the movie itself is quite good, so I would recommend it. It's not like amazing or anything. It's pretty much on par with the other Netflix produced crime docs.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, it's well.
I think that's all it comes down to with those Netflix crime docs, or any docs on Netflix for that matter, is how interesting is the story.
Right, because they're all fairly well made, like.
Yeah, they all seem to have the same like production style to them, production value, that type of thing.
Yeah. So
it's just a matter of how interesting is it.
Exactly. And I mean, this is like leaps and bounds above something that you'd see on like HLN, or one of those like Discovery ID, or one of any of those other like TV channels that do like Investigation Discovery or whatever they do. Forensic Files, yeah. There's one. Better, much higher production value than something like that.
Gotcha. That's all I have.
All right, I'll mention one more. I did see Slapface, which is on Shudder. I'm not going to talk about that because I didn't like it at all. So I would just say avoid that. It's a pretty boring horror movie. But I saw Vibes from 1988, directed by Ken Kwapis. This is a romantic comedy starring Jeff Goldblum and Cyndi Lauper. And you have Peter Falk in there as well.
Incredible.
So the premise of this is Cyndi Lauper plays a medium. So she has a spirit that she talks to. And Jeff Goldblum is a psychometrist, where he can basically, he has like he touches things. Anything that he touches, he can like learn everything about what that item, like where it came from, who touched it, like all the information. So like all of his psychic abilities are attached to objects. So you have these two people who get hired by Peter Falk to go to Ecuador and search for this lost treasure that's in the jungle of Ecuador. And that should be enough to sell you on this right there.
Yeah, it is.
Of course, the two, Jeff Goldblum and Cyndi Lauper, like they're very much an odd couple at first. Like they don't really get along. They're kind of like snarky with each other, but as the adventure progresses, they of course fall in love. It's it did. I enjoyed it overall. I think that it starts off way stronger than where it goes and how it ends. Because it did start to lose me towards the end, but it's still a pretty fun romp. There's some other people in this, like Steve Buscemi's in here for like one scene, and it's a pretty early role for him too. But it's also interesting because he looks the same in this as he does now, pretty much. But yeah, I had fun with this one. I was looking for like kind of a light 80s comedy, and this one definitely fits that bill. Julian Sands is in it too, because I think he was in everything back then.
Incredible.
Yeah, this is on Amazon Prime, so if you have Prime, you can check it out on there. Let's see what we have in theaters this week. Got Dog coming out. This is with Channing Tatum.
Is this the one he directed?
I think it is, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a buddy comedy that follows the misadventures of two former Army Rangers paired again.
Oh, boy.
Channing Tatum kind of just disappeared there for a minute. And then he came back.
Yep.
Now, because he's in that, there's another movie that he's in with Sandra Bullock that's coming out, like a action comedy.
Yeah. Yep.
So, yeah. We also have Uncharted coming out. This is the adaptation of the video game series.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's the one with Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg. Interestingly, when the Uncharted games started coming out and people talked about the possibility of a movie, everybody was like, "Oh, dude, Mark Wahlberg would be perfect for Nathan Drake." But this was like 20 years ago or something. So they cast Mark Wahlberg, but he's not playing Nathan Drake. He's playing Sully, which is kind of a fun little nod there, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, you can look at it that way if you want.
I guess you could look at it in a negative connotation as well.
Look at it any way you want, really.
I mean, I hope it's good. I mean, I'm always hopeful for a video game adaptation. Like, I always want them to be good, but expectations are non-existent for this one, certainly. Especially because Dan Trachtenberg was originally attached and left the project because he didn't like the direction it was heading. So that's kind of a red flag for me right there.
Yeah, and isn't it what's his name, Ruben Fleischer?
Yeah.
Isn't that who took over? Yeah, I don't know.
That's another. I'd call that a yellow flag at least.
Yeah.
So
that seems to me like you're bringing in someone that's just going to do everything you want and not.
Mm-hmm.
It's just going to be like, okay, yes sir,
yeah,
yes sir.
Yeah. That is likely.
I just want to work. I just want to make movies.
I just want to earn a paycheck, guys. Come on. Anyway, the other one that is coming out in theaters is The Cursed, which is a horror movie that I'm not too familiar with. Late 1800s, a man arrives in a remote country village to investigate an attack by a wild animal, but discovers a much deeper and sinister force that has the manor and its townspeople in its grip.
That's a tough one. That's one of those that you can't search that. I just typed that in on
Cursed,
Letterboxd.
yeah.
There's like 20 fucking movies. I have no idea.
One of them should be listed as 2022, and that'll be the one.
That's not there. Wait. Maybe it's this one. 2021.
That probably.
Sean Ellis.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
Sean Ellis.
There we go.
Sean Ellis. That's the guy that did Anthropoid and The Broken, and he did that Cashback movie.
Guys, that is a...
Remember that one?
Cover that I've seen. Never seen the movie.
I saw the short film. I didn't see the actual the feature length. And if I remember correctly, it was just about like a kid who worked at a supermarket who like imagined all the women shoppers there like naked.
Yeah,
I think there might have been more to it than that, but that's kind of what I remember.
interesting. Apparently, I've seen a Sean Ellis movie, Metro Manila. I don't remember this movie at all. But apparently I watched it and gave it 2.5 stars.
There you go. Okay, so that's pretty much it for theaters. On VOD this week, on the 15th, we have Help. We got Flee the Light. Here Before. What is that? A Saban Films release there, so gives you an idea. We got Gridlocked. On Tour with the Briggs.
Oh yeah,
So So if you're a fan of the Briggs, you check that out for a little. Get your rock doc fill. We got Red Ghost, Nazi Hunter. I'm actually somewhat interested in this. A mythical lone wolf fighter known as the Red Ghost roams the Russian forests, sniping and killing Nazis one by one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm kind of into this. On the 17th, we have Sundown. This is with Tim Roth and Charlotte Gainsbourg. We have They Live in the Gray. This is on Shudder. While investigating a child abuse case, a young social worker discovers that a supernatural entity is tormenting the family. Got some interesting things on the coming down the stream on Shudder. So stay tuned.
Yeah, they got like a out of nowhere Jennifer Reeder.
Mm-hmm.
What's that all about? Didn't even hear anything. Just out of nowhere. Oh yeah, dropping a movie on Shudder.
Yeah.
They well, seems like everyone, all these streaming services just dropping movies.
Just dropping.
But they just don't have like the
advertising and marketing.
Yeah, they just don't seem to have that built up yet.
Maybe they're like really banking on social media. You know, word of mouth type of marketing.
It does seem like everyone's going that route, which makes sense.
Yeah. All right, let's see what else we have here. The Last Bus. This is on the 18th. We got Streamline. About a swimmer, from the looks of it. Benjamin Lane. It's inspired by true events. Yeah. Probably not interested in that. We got Ted K. This is a biopic about the Unabomber. Charlton Copley playing old Ted Kaczynski. This actually looks somewhat interesting. Like I don't feel like I'm in the right headspace right now to see a biopic about Ted Kaczynski, but the film itself looks pretty well made.
All I can think of anytime Ted Kaczynski is mentioned is Upright Citizens Brigade.
Yeah.
That's all I think of.
Oh man. What a
That's how I see Ted Kaczynski.
What a show. Incarnation is another one that's coming out that looks like it's a horror movie starring Taye Diggs. Let's see what else we have here. The Ledge. That's another Saban Films one. A rock climbing adventure between two friends turns into a terrifying nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
We got Pursuit coming out with old John Cusack and
watch out.
And Emil Hirsch.
Oh boy.
We got A Banquet. This is a horror film put out by FC Midnight. Looks like it could be good. And that's pretty much it. Oh, I'm sorry. We have Texas Chainsaw Massacre coming out on Netflix.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, that one I'll be checking out, just for obvious reasons. Yeah, this one, it's so funny how David Gordon Green's Halloween comes out, and then it was really successful. So like everybody now is like, let's reboot. Let's do these like pseudo reboot sequels to all the horror franchises. So this Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie is almost the exact same concept. You have it takes place now, modern times, and it's like a pseudo sequel to the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, where I can't remember the woman's name, but the sole survivor of the first film, the woman who gets away, she's coming back in this one because like Leatherface comes out of hiding and starts killing again, and she finds out and is like, time to take him down, Jamie Lee Curtis style, Laurie Strode style.
Yeah.
And there's the Chucky series, the Child's Play series that's on Sci-Fi, that has a similar plot line too, where Andy, the dude who played Andy in the first two Child's Play movies, he comes back to take out Chucky. So it's like definitely a trend.
No, I don't need this. I don't need this. Don't want it.
Yeah.
Keep it.
I will say that in the trailer for Texas Chainsaw, there's a scene where Leatherface ends up on a party bus. So,
oh God, yes. No, see, that's what I don't like, because like with Leatherface is he was just in his house, and these people just kept coming in, and he really had no choice. You know, like he just wanted to be left alone. They're living out in the middle of nowhere. But
and it looks like
kids keep coming in their house.
Yeah, and it looks like maybe that's how this one starts too, because the trailer indicates that they did go into his house again. Now how he gets on the party bus, I'm not sure.
It would be interesting if it's just he's never really used public transportation, and he's like, I'm gonna get the bus and get out of here. This is a bus. I'm getting on this bus. And then it happens to be a party bus, and he doesn't quite understand. You
know, you see it in the trailer that obviously he's going to murder everybody on the party bus, but it would be funny if he didn't. He just rode the party bus as if it was a regular bus.
It's just like, but the buses have changed. Buses have, like, the vibe of this bus is just completely different.
I don't know. We'll see.
These are spirited people.
Yeah,
just gonna hang back.
Either way, I'll check it out. I watched Texas Chainsaw Massacre at the beginning last night because I kind of forgot what happened in that one. That was the one from 2016. It wasn't the latest one, or maybe it was 2006 actually. Yeah, I think it was 2006, and then there was another one that was like Texas Chainsaw 3D or something that came out after that. But
it's just too many.
There's a lot of them, yeah, and unfortunately, unlike some of the other horror franchises, the Texas Chainsaw sequels and reboots are not really that good. Like, they don't really add too much.
No.
But can they? Can they really?
Well, I think that's the issue, is that franchise, quote unquote, just peaked with the first one.
I mean, it was just. The first one was just so... It was like lightning in a bottle, that one. Mm-hmm. None of the other ones. Even though the other ones, like all the sequels, were way more violent and gory and like grisly and had more kills and all that stuff. Like, none of them came even close to being as scary as the original.
No.
Anyway, we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. I think that's going to do it for this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. You can send us your questions and topics to podcast@filmpulse.net. You can follow us on Twitter @filmpulsenet and @filmpulsekevin. And if you have a minute, consider reviewing us on iTunes. That would be great. For Kevin Rakestraw, my name's Adam Patterson. We'll see you next week.